You know, I love your singing, and I just wanted to tell you when I was 6, I was in my school play for Christmas, and you know who I was? I was Figgy Pudding. So when you sang that song, it reminded me of then. And there was a neighbor who called me Figgy Pudding for the rest of the time I knew her. That was her name, Figgy Pudding. Well, I want you to think about any questions you have. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about doing this painting, and then if you have any questions, I will be glad to try my best to answer them. This is a big picture. Did you know that? Did you know that this is a big one? See, that is a smaller one, and this is a big one. And so when I first painted this painting, it looks big in here, but it looked a lot bigger in the room where I painted it. I started this painting in a small room, and I could only get about that far away. You hear about 8 feet away from the painting. That's as far away as I could get from it, because it was kind of in a long, skinny room. And so I stretched this canvas on the wall. It was the biggest canvas I could stretch on the wall, and then I had to decide what to paint on it. And I was terrified. I was scared for a few days, looking at this big white canvas, trying to figure out what was an idea that felt good enough and powerful enough to spread all across this great big canvas. And then finally I had an idea. I drew a little picture. I always draw. I have these little sketchbooks I always keep in my pocket for when I have ideas, because it turns out that most ideas are bad. They're not really good, you know. But you draw them, and then you think about them later, and the ones that are good, they still sound good in a few days. And so, but I drew a little picture about this big, about as big as a stick of gum, of this. Well, just the general idea of what I wanted to do here, and I thought that's what I wanted to do, and I knew, because I was already scared, that if I waited any longer, that I would just get scared. So I took charcoal and I started right at the top of Mary's forehead, right there on this big white canvas. And she drew her face, just right down there. Drew her body, drew little baby Jesus and Joseph, and then drew these midwives here, and then I don't even remember which was the first angel I started, but somewhere over here, I just knew there would be a lot of, and I don't know how many angels there are in this painting. I've counted several times, and I get a different number, and I kind of like not knowing, so I've decided that I think maybe it changes, but that's possible. But do you have any questions for me about this picture or about painting this picture? Yes? She asked me what inspired me to draw the dog. Well, initially, in that little tiny picture that I drew, there was a donkey, and there was a cow and a sheep. But when I drew these angels, I got so carried away drawing angels, I didn't have any room for any animals. Because usually in a nativity, you see the little nativity sets in your house, that there's an ox and an ass and a sheep, and I assumed I would put those in the nativity. Although all we know is that Jesus was born in a stable. We don't know that those animals will be there, but we know that there are animals in a stable. And so I didn't have any more room. I didn't have room for any animals, and I didn't want to get rid of any of the angels. So I wanted the animals to be represented somehow, and I like dogs, so I put a dog in. And dogs are in stables too. So, and a mother dog with some puppies seemed like a good idea. Yes? She asked me how long it took me to draw it, and I started the painting in January, of several years ago, in 2006, as a matter of fact, and finished it in about October of that same year. Because it would have taken me longer, but there was a show in this museum when I started the painting, they decided they wanted to use this painting in that show, so I had a deadline that I had to stop doing everything else and work only on this painting. It's kind of exhausting to work on a painting and stuff. Well, go point at it. Which one? I don't know who you're talking about. This guy? That's Joseph. He was just asking who that is. Well, he is asking why Joseph is got his hand up on his eye like this. And I think that, you know, I have children, and I was there when they were born. And it's a little bit overwhelming for fathers, you know. So that's probably a little bit kind of talking about myself, you know, because I think Joseph, and, you know, and my children, they're just my kids, you know. None of these were the Son of God. And I think Joseph is kind of thinking, oh my gosh, you know, what have I gotten into? Here we are in a stable, we don't have any place to stay, my wife just had her first baby, you know. And also, I put Joseph's hand on Mary's shoulder, and then Mary is comforting Joseph, which is, anyway, when you grow up, you'll understand that a lot. Yes? I'm sorry, what's that?
What material did you use to make this?
This is an oil painting. It's an oil painting on canvas. And they won't let me touch it anymore because I don't own it. For a long time it was mine, and I would walk around and, oh, I just hit the frame, and I would touch it. But when the museum got it, they told me I can't touch it anymore. And they tell me that in other museums too, because I touch other people's pictures too. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not a good idea. It sets off alarms and things. Yes? These patterns, I cut out little stamps and set them in paint and stamped them on. She asked how the patterns were made. I'm sorry. Yes? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Yes. She's asking why there are baby angels. And when I started the painting, there weren't any babies among the angels. And I mean, this is just the way I tell the story in my own head anyway. That I figured that, you know, Jesus is born and everybody wants to see. And so they start out in order, you know, everybody, okay, line up, everybody's going to see this. But eventually, as it happens, when everybody wants to see something, it just breaks down and everybody's crowding in it. And it felt a little bit like a mob, you know, they were all crowding in it. And so I put babies and children in there because it felt happier. It didn't feel quite so claustrophobic if it was something that included children. And so that was the first reason that I decided to put children in. But since doing that, I think, of course there are babies among the angels. So I don't know if that's true, but I think it's true. Yes. Oh, well, I just assume that they've all come to see, and then they're going off to tell the shepherds, or they're just, some of them are turning back, they don't want to leave quite yet, but other people are pushing them on. And so she was just asking what's happening to the angels out on the upright. They're going off to spread the news, to tell what's happening. Yes? Just yell it to me. I'm sorry. Oh, she's asking about the two other women, the midwives. You know, they're as you know, they're not mentioned in the scriptures that there were any midwives. Do you know what midwives are? Midwives they are women that help a woman having a baby. They have a lot of experience delivering babies. And in those days, babies were not delivered by doctors, they were delivered by midwives. And although there's no mention of midwives in the scriptures, but I'm certain that women would have come to help Mary. There's just no question in my mind. And so I put them in. The idea actually was suggested to me by a colleague of mine, Joe Ostroff, who teaches here. And as I was telling him what I thought I would do on this canvas, he said, "Well, you've got to include the midwives." And as soon as he said it, I knew there was nothing more obvious in the world. And so you had asked me who these people are, if I use models. I didn't use a model, but when I first drew all the angels, they were all bald, and I left one of them bald because Joe is bald. He shaves his head. And I did that because he reminded me that there would have been midwives there. And so they're not mentioned, but I'm very certain that they're. You know, if a woman was having a baby in your garage, you think that women would not go and help her? Is that possible? No, women would come. Why are some of the angels crying, she's asking. Well, I think that The event of Jesus coming had been foretold and prophesied for a long time, and everybody very much needed this to happen. But I think that what happens usually in our lives too is you anticipate a thing that you really look forward to, but at the point when it's about to happen, there's this sudden anxiety. School's going to start, and you're excited about it, but then the night before it's a little bit scary. And I think that for some of these angels, they know that this needs to happen. They're thrilled that the Savior is born, but it's kind of scary to suddenly think that now that their God is now pushed inside this little purple baby and now needs to get fed and changed and cleaned, and it would be kind of upsetting for some of them. So even though they know it needs to happen, I think some of the angels some of them are crying because they're happy, and some of them I think seem a little bit upset. But so
One more.
yes. Oh, there is one more question. What made me think about this? Well, I was doing a lot of paintings in which there were kind of angels or spirits looking into the corners at the top of the painting. And so at the point when I had this big canvas, it was kind of terrified about starting it. I thought that I wanted to do a painting that didn't just have angels looking in the corners, but was just mostly about the angels. And I thought about the births of my own children, and it felt very much like those events were very witnessed by angels. And I thought, what birth would have been more witnessed by angels than Jesus' birth, where all of us needed it to happen. So we all would have had an interest, and maybe wanted to see, and maybe we did. Maybe we got to see. Maybe we got to be in this big crowd and got shoved through, so we got to see, because everybody depends on this working. And so I think we're done, right? Thank you very much. It's been very nice to talk to you.